Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's LChat on getting started with Squarespace. I'm really excited to have you all tuning in live. Those of you who are catching the replay later, I'm glad that you're tuning in as well. If you haven't already, I would love to see who's tuning in today. I know that some of you have already said hello and told me where you're tuning in from in the comments, and I love seeing that. We have people tuning in from all over the world, from Suzanne in Copenhagen, Kristen in Oregon, and even Elizabeth is in Charlotte. I'm in Charlotte too. So glad to see so many of you tuning in. Tiara is from, oh wow, from Anguilla. Am I saying that correctly? Showing my ignorance. Chicago, Oregon, this is awesome. I'm so glad that you all are tuning in. Also, if this is your first Anguilla, that's how you say it. Awesome. Good to know. Learned something new today. Glad that you're tuning in. I'd also love to know if this is your first LChat that you've ever tuned into. So if there are any first-time LChatters in here, feel free to let me know in the comments as well. Before we dive into the content, because we have a lot to cover today, and I'm going to try to cover as much as I can about getting started with Squarespace in this amount of time. We'll finish within the hour, but I also want to leave enough time to answer questions. So you'll see if you keep scrolling down, there's a question section. We already have 17 questions in there, which is awesome. If you have any questions at the outset of this webinar, feel free to drop the questions there. Or as I go throughout the webinar, feel free to ask questions as we go. You can also look and see which questions have already been asked and go ahead and vote them up if you really want to see them answered. And I'll answer them in order of the number of votes. So we'll see how many of those I can get through at the very end of this. I've also added a poll this time. So if you click over from questions and answers to polls, I asked a few questions. The first is, do you currently have a Squarespace site? It looks like most of you do, but some of you are just curious about Squarespace. So it's good to see where all of you are at with Squarespace. And the second one is, what is your biggest hang up with Squarespace? Where are you struggling? And usually it's with customizing the design. It's a little more limited than WordPress, but I'm excited to show you how you can make your Squarespace site your own and differentiate it from people who are using the same template. And then the last question is, what is your favorite Squarespace feature? And it looks like you all have said all of the above, and I'm going to go over the features and benefits very shortly. It's fun to see you all answering this as I'm going over these as well. So I just wanted to see where you all were at who are tuning in today. Squarespace is one of my very favorite topics to blog about and teach on, and I've done a lot of posts on Squarespace over the last few years. But I figured it would be helpful to go back to the very beginning for those of you who are just getting started with Squarespace or are curious to learn more about it, or a lot of designers are also tuning into this webinar who are interested in designing Squarespace sites for their clients. So I thought it would be helpful just to go back to the very beginning, go back to the basics, and cover the benefits of Squarespace, how to switch over to Squarespace if you're moving over from a site like Blogger or WordPress, how to get pages and navigation set up in Squarespace, and then how to customize it. So that's where we're headed within the course of this webinar, and I'm just going to dive right into the content. So feel free to leave comments as we go, and feel free to ask questions as well. I'll leave about 15, hopefully 20 minutes at the end of the webinar to answer any questions. All right, so getting started with Squarespace. First, I'm just going to cover some of the benefits of using Squarespace. I've narrowed it down to 8. There are many more that I continue to come across, but these are the 8 main reasons that I use Squarespace for my site, why I recommend that my clients use Squarespace for their site, and why I would highly recommend for you all to use it for your site as well. So I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. Number 1 is that Squarespace is easy on the eyes. All of their templates are really beautiful. They've done a great job of being selective in what their templates look like and how they function. Another reason I love Squarespace is that just because you might be starting your business doesn't mean you have to look like you just started your business. A lot of Squarespace's templates, if you go in, you drop your images and you make slight changes with text and color and make it your own, but with their beautiful templates, you can look professional right from the start. You don't have to look like a novice, which is a huge plus. Number two, Squarespace is really user-friendly. This is one of the biggest benefits of using Squarespace. Some of you may be on WordPress right now, and I know when I was over on WordPress, the back end was really tricky. It wasn't super intuitive. I didn't enjoy it. It was more frustrating than anything else. And I found Squarespace to be super user-friendly. This isn't only a plus for me using it for my own site, but as a designer recommending it to my clients, I feel comfortable and confident handing off their site, showing them how to use it, doing a tutorial for about an hour and a half, and then they can run with it. I don't get very many questions from past clients on how to update content. So they have really easy drag and drop widgets and intuitive page layouts that are super helpful on the back end. So they've done a great job of designing the back end of your website so that you can do a better job of designing your website and setting it up the way you want it. Number three is that Squarespace is mobile friendly. Nowadays, and I don't have the statistic right off the top of my head, but I just shared it in this week's newsletter, how many people are viewing websites from their phone? Most of the time when people visit your website, it's going to be from a mobile device or a tablet, not necessarily from a desktop. And so your site needs to be mobile friendly. And every Squarespace template is mobile friendly and compatible across all platforms or all devices. So desktop, tablet, mobile. Even when you're designing in the back end of your site, you can see what your site will look like across all devices. Number four, Squarespace is all-inclusive, which means that you don't have to go to GoDaddy and buy a domain. If you already have a domain, that's fine. You can transfer it over. You don't have to buy hosting anywhere. That's included in your Squarespace subscription. You don't have to go elsewhere and buy a template and bring it into Squarespace. All of it is included right in Squarespace. So if you have an annual plan for Squarespace, you get a free domain included in it. There's no hosting, so everything is all in one place, which is less to keep up with and just easier on your end. So number five, Squarespace has really good support. For me, if I have a question about my website, I want it answered pretty quickly, and they have quick responses. They have helpful answers every time, helpful forums. I love the Squarespace help forum, so I've been really pleased with their customer support. Number six is that it's really affordable. Plans start at $12 a month, and that's usually if you don't have a ton of pages on your website and you aren't doing e-commerce, you can start with the personal plan. It has 20 pages. That's the max, I think, but unlimited storage, and it should be pretty quick. I know there was a question about that in the question section that I hope I can get to at the end of the webinar. But they start at $12 a month. I'm on the business plan, so the $18 a month, that's the annual cost. It's pretty sweet. So Squarespace is affordable, and you can look at all of their plans on their website. 7 is that Squarespace takes care of the things that you shouldn't have to worry about. So there aren't any plugins that you have to update very often. They go ahead and make those updates for you so your website can function the way you want it to. And then number 8 is that Squarespace allows you to easily make changes on your site. There's no HTML necessary, although if you do know some HTML and CSS, you can add that to your site. But you don't have to, which is really nice for people like me who know enough code to be dangerous. So those are my biggest benefits of using Squarespace, although I continue to come across more and more every day. I should also say I'm not affiliated with Squarespace in any way. It sounds like I'm hardcore selling them. I just really love using their platform. All right, so making the switch. If you already have a site on WordPress or on Blogger, how easy is it to make the switch from Squarespace? Are you going to lose all your content? How do you switch your domain name? How do you do that? So I'm going to go over that really quickly. I actually wrote a blog post on this not too long ago, so I'm borrowing from that a little bit. But transferring your domain is really easy. If you already have your domain and you purchased it from a third-party site like GoDaddy, you can easily transfer it over to Squarespace. All you have to do is go under Settings in your main menu, click domains and then walk through the process under use a domain I own. So it'll usually recognize where you bought the domain name from, whether it was Namecheap, GoDaddy, wherever. They pretty much have them all listed there, and they'll walk you through exactly how to transfer it over and all those details. So it's super easy. Don't fret if you already have a domain name through somewhere else. And if you don't already have a domain name, you can purchase an annual plan and get the domain right from Squarespace. Transferring your content. So say you have blog content that you want to import into Squarespace, you can easily do that as well. So any blog posts, pages, comments, even attachments, you can go ahead and just easily import into Squarespace. And you can do that through, again, settings in your main menu, which I'll show you in just a moment. I'm going to do a demo. You go under the Advanced tab and then Import Export, and it'll walk you through exactly how to import your content into Squarespace. So you won't lose those blog posts. You won't lose even the comments on those blog posts. Squarespace will go ahead and import them right in from Blogger or from WordPress. And then also you can transfer your products. So if you do have a shop and e-commerce is important to you or is an important function of your Squarespace site, you can transfer those products over easily. So you don't have to go through, say you have 60 products in your Etsy shop right now. You don't have to go through and get all those images and all that content and enter it in Squarespace one by one. You can actually import all of that information, all the photos and all the details right into your Squarespace site. And you can do that under settings and then advanced and then import export as well. I'm going to be sharing all these slides with y'all as well on in next week's blog post. So stay tuned for that if you want to come back to these step-by-step instructions for importing things. But so you can import your content, you can import your products, and you can transfer your domain name really easily through Squarespace. So don't fret if you're worried about making the switch. All right, I know I'm moving through this pretty quickly, but I want to get to the demo. So, so you decide to move over to Squarespace, or you decide to get started with Squarespace after seeing these benefits and seeing how easy it is to make the switch. How do you choose the right template for your Squarespace site? They continue to add more templates. It can be a little overwhelming looking through them all and trying to decide which one is right for you. So I have some steps on how to go about choosing the right one. Number one is to determine the scope of your website. How do you want it to function? Which pages and which features need to be included in your site? So I usually recommend making kind of a site map or even just brainstorming. What are the functions? What are all the pages? Of course, you might need a home page, about page, contact page, but do you need service pages? Do you need archives? Do you need a blog sidebar? Is that important to you? All of this is something that you need to consider before you choose a template because you want to make sure that those features are included. A blog post sidebar isn't included in, or a blog sidebar rather, isn't included in every Squarespace template. So if that's important to you, you don't want to go and design your site and go to add sidebar and then figure out that you can't do it. Same thing with blog post image or excerpt images. So if you want blog post excerpts, make sure that your template, whatever you choose, has that feature. So go ahead and figure out the scope of your website and how you want it to function before you even look at the templates is what I would suggest. Number two is to browse. Oh, and I should mention, back to number one before I forget it, don't only think about how you want your website to function right now, think about how you want your website to function 2 years from now. So if you have any thought of, well, maybe someday I might open a shop for digital products, go ahead and take that into consideration when you're choosing your template. Not that it's the end of the world if you need to change your template, it's just a little inconvenient. So keep that in mind right from the get-go. Number two is to browse the template categories, and I'll show you where these are in just a moment. But depending on the capabilities and the features that you may have outlined in step number one, you can filter the templates. So you can see which templates are best for galleries and portfolios and that sort of thing. So be sure to take a look there, but don't just limit yourself to template categories. Some of the other templates might work just as well for you in one category than they do in another. But that is helpful that they have it there. Number three is to check out example sites for each template. So They're in the older templates like Avenue or Bedford or maybe even Hayden. If you keep scrolling on that template page when you're checking out like the demo and all of that stuff, if you keep scrolling, you'll see that they have listed existing customer sites. And so it's really helpful to see how versatile that template is and to see what other people have done with it. So a lot of times I'll skip the demo because I know that they usually make it look really pretty. I want to see how people have actually used it. And so I keep scrolling and I want to see example sites. I'll show you that in just a moment as well. Number 4, take a look at alternative views. Don't just look at it in desktop mode. Also be sure to look at it on mobile and be sure to look at it on tablet. And an easy way that you can do that is to click on the demo mode and on your desktop and then drag the size of the window down to a template size and then drag it down to mobile size. So you don't have to pull it up on your phone or pull it up on your tablet. All you have to do to see what the website looks like is decrease the width of the screen, and you can see exactly what it's going to look like. Step number 5 is to scroll through the template features. Instead of clicking the feature index, which again I'll show you in just a moment, I'm going to show you a link that you can go to that shows all the template's capabilities. So if you just look at the feature index, it's going to be the exact same for each template. Instead, go to Squarespace help and look up the template that you're interested in, and that'll be more helpful for you. You'll see all of its features, its real features. And number 6, take your template for a test drive. Squarespace has a 14-day trial site, or allows you to have a 14-day trial site. So before you commit and pay for your Squarespace site, take it for a test drive. Date your site or date your template for a little while. That's allowed. So be sure to play around with it and see how it functions before you commit to it. All right, so we're going to go over setting up pages and navigation in Squarespace in just a second, but I do want to give you a look at the templates. So bear with me while I change screens really quickly. All right, I'll just share my entire screen, and hopefully y'all aren't getting tunnel vision. Okay. Oops, did not mean to do that. All right, here we are. Here is just the regular squarespace.com landing page, and if I click Get Started, I can show you into the templates a little bit. So you see here they have all the categories, which are helpful: art and design, creative services. If you click on them, you can see all the beautiful templates that would work well for those in creative services, which I'm guessing are many of you tuning in today. A little secret, I use the Hayden template. So if I click on it, I can see what the Hayden template looks like easily, desktop, tablet mode, or on the phone. But if I click Preview Hayden, and hopefully y'all can see this, if I drag in the size of the screen, ooh, there we go, a little bit of tunnel vision, but you can see it. Now you can see what it looks like on tablet view. Oops, did not mean to click out of that. And then you can see what it looks like in mobile view. So you can see how it functions, which is super helpful just by dragging the size of the screen. So that's helpful to see, but like I said, it's also helpful to see how other people have used this template. So if you keep scrolling down, you can see examples of how other businesses and websites have used the Hayden template and maybe even get some inspiration. A lot of times when I'm looking for templates for my clients, I'll look here way more than I even will up here. So that's helpful. Another thing to look at when you're choosing a template is just the Squarespace help article, and I'll share this link with you in just a second in the Crowdcast window. But it's going to show you the special features involved. So Avenue has an index page, and it explains what that is. It explains how it uses headers and footers, page borders, and all of these great details. So be sure to take a look at that too. And before I forget, this one's for Avenue, but in the sidebar, you can find the template that you're using. So be sure to check that out as well. All right. So once you choose a template and you go into the back end, even if you're in trial mode, I'm going to take you into the back end of the Ellen Company site instead of starting from scratch. You will see this left-hand menu. One of the things that I love, I told you that I love that Squarespace is so easy to use, and maybe I'll make this a little bit bigger. Bear with me 1 second. Let's see here. There it is. Okay. Sorry for the brief tunnel vision. All right, we're back. One of the things I love the most is that I can see the changes as I'm making them. So I don't have to go out of the window and preview anything. I can see all the changes right here. I can see my live site, and then I can make changes based on this menu. Before you get started with anything else, I recommend even from the template view. So your template's going to pull up and it's going to have sample content based on what the template that you chose. But I recommend coming into settings first and just setting up your general information, business information, even permissions if you have multiple people who are collaborating on your site. And just go through here with your domains, even your connected accounts. So if you click on connected accounts, you can connect all of your social media accounts here that you want to show up on your website. So the order that they're even in here is the same order top to bottom as left to right across the screen. So you can switch those around. So if I wanted Twitter to come first, it's going to go ahead and refresh. Now Twitter is before Facebook. So a lot of people get confused about how to connect their social media accounts. You do it through connected accounts. So just go ahead and set all of that up in the settings section. Some of these you won't have to worry about. Maybe you don't have to worry about anything under the advanced tab, but go ahead and set that up. Once you have that set up and you put your business name and maybe even your address and all of that fun stuff, you can come into Pages and start setting up your pages and navigation. So from the very get-go, you should have listed the pages that you want to include on your site before you were even choosing a template to see how you want it to function. And before you even mess with the design or the content of the pages, I recommend figuring out how you want to set up your site's navigation. So the main navigation menu that every template has is up here toward the top of your screen, whether it's in a little hamburger menu with the little lines, or if it's listed out to the right or in the middle or to the left, whatever your template looks like, your main navigation is going to be at the top of your screen. And the order that it's listed in from top to bottom is the same order that it's going to be listed in from left to right across your screen. So you can see that in the main navigation. Some templates have a secondary navigation. So mine does, but not everyone does. And that's going to, for this template, be down here. And then you're going to have a not linked section. So everyone has a not linked section as well. And these are pages that aren't going to be linked to in your navigation, but they're pages that are still on your website. So you can see, and this is a little humbling, but you can see I have a lot of unlinked pages down here. And you might, as you go along, have a lot of unlinked pages too. But these are really helpful for pages that you don't want necessarily accessed from your main navigation or even your secondary navigation, but pages that you want to link to from these pages, or maybe just give people a specific URL for. So that's very helpful. If you want to add a new page, you can see these plus icons at the very top. So I'm going to create a not linked page for the sake of demonstration. And you can see that different page options appear. So I can create just a blank page, which I'll do in just a second, a product page, which is helpful for e-commerce, cover page. There's a lot of different options down here. The ones that I use the most are a regular page, a blog page, and then we also have a folder. So a folder creates a drop-down menu in your navigation. So people who are on the Ellen Company site might be a little confused by this, but I'm just going to show you. If I wanted to create a folder and I call it information, or maybe I'll just do details. And I click off. I can drag pages in here. So maybe I want about and contact to go under details. I can click and drag. Everything is all click and drag. And I can move contact underneath this folder too. And now if anybody scrolls down to the bottom of the Ellen Company website and they scroll over details, my about page and my contact page are now in a drop down, or this one's really a drop up because it goes up. But you can see that those pages are hidden underneath the name of this folder. So that's really helpful for the sake of space if you want a drop down menu. If you want to get rid of that, you can just click and drag out of this folder. And I can hover over this details page and you can see this little trash can icon. I can click it and it's almost back to normal. There we go. So now and this isn't a good page to show you on because the archives page is pretty long, but now it's in the right order again. So you can just drag and drop the order. You can create folders if you want to, but I recommend setting up your navigation first just to figure out what pages need to be on your site and how you want it to function. So I usually recommend, just from a usability standpoint and user experience standpoint, to have the least amount of items in your navigation as possible. So usually, as a rule of thumb, no more than 5, max 6 in your main navigation. Now you might have one that's a drop down and that's totally fine. You can tuck more pages underneath there. But if you have a lot of options, it can be really overwhelming to visitors on your site and they don't know where to go next. So be selective and intentional about what you include in your, especially in your main navigation. You can set up all of your navigation here and your pages. So once you set up a page here, and we'll do another sample page. So I'm going to set up a not linked page. This time I'm going to set up an actual page, just blank page. And we'll call this page title new page. So creative. But for the sake of demonstration, we'll do that. Squarespace fairly recently did an update where they have sample layouts all ready to go for you. So you can start with a just plain blank page, or as you scroll down, you can see page layouts already. So here's one for an about page if you want to use it. Here's another one for an about page that already has the content there for you, the blocks there for you. Contact examples. So you can find one in here. I love this one. This one's great for like a services page or something like that, or products page. I think it is really clean and simple and I like the layout. So I might choose that one for features. Again, you can scroll through here. They even have a sort menu at the very top and then click Start Editing. So now that you have your navigation all figured out, now it's time to set up the pages. And I recommend setting up the content on your pages before you ever mess with the design. I think that it's better just to get the content on there and then you can worry about how it's styled. So you're it's like building a house. You don't worry about the color of the walls at the very beginning, although if you're like me, I probably would at least be thinking about it. But you want to make sure that it has a sound structure. So that's where pages and navigation come in. And you can add the content and then you can add the design on top of that. So they already have sample text in here. So if I click on this text block, I can go in and edit any of this text with the help of this tool panel right here. And Squarespace already has headers built in for you. So if I want to make this header a little smaller, this one is heading 1. I can click and change it to heading 2. And again, you can change the style of all of this in the back end, which I'll show you about in just a second. Or I can make it header 3. So all of that is already built in. Take it back to header 1. So you can easily edit the text in here. Squarespace sets up pages by units called blocks. So right now we are in a text block that's already ready for us. These over here, as I hover over them, this is an image block. So all 3 of these are image blocks. You can see more text blocks down here. And if I click, I can make changes to them. And you can even see a block here for button. So all of these, this whole page is made up of blocks. And if you want to change the block, so say I want to add an image, you can hover over it and click edit, or a lot of times for these blocks, you can just double click them. So if you double click, more options are going to appear in this pop-up window. So the great thing about Squarespace too is that it walks you through how to edit each one of these blocks and customize them and make them your own. So you can add an image by clicking add an image, and I might just choose this getting started with Squarespace image just as an example. And it's going to go ahead and process it and resize it for me so that it fits right here on the screen. I always recommend naming your files, because if someone pins this image, this is whatever you name this file is going to show up in the pin description. So usually if it's something like a blog post, I'll do the name of the blog post -Ellen Company. So at the very least, if someone forgets to write a pin description, it's there. Some people ask me about Squarespace SEO too, and a lot of times it just comes down to simple, monotonous things like naming your images. And there's more to it, of course, than that. But naming your images is definitely helpful. So just get into practice of doing that, and you can do it right here. Up in the top, there's always, well, there's usually more options, more block options. So if you click on design, there's a few different options for how the image appears on the page. So you might want it to appear like a poster with text written over top, or a card, or overlap. These are fairly new features as well. I, from a design standpoint, would just choose inline. To me, that looks the nicest, but you might change it, and that is totally fine. And you can see just more options here. You can enable a light box so that if somebody clicks on it, it shows up larger on the screen. And then something that's really helpful, maybe I want this image to be a button. You can add a click-through URL right here. So I can add a link to whatever page I want this button to go to. I can choose open in a new window if I want to. Or say that it's actually a page on my own site that I want to link to. I can click on content, and I can choose one of my pages right from here. I don't have to hunt down the URL to the About page. I can just select my About page, and it will link to my About page. Or, and this is how I have the Ellen Company library set up, which is super helpful because I can keep it all on my site. I can link to a file. So say I want this image, when someone clicks it, to take them to a PDF for something like a content upgrade or something like that. Of course, maybe not a content upgrade because you want their email address, but maybe on a protected page or something like that. You can add an actual file. So even Adobe Illustrator files I've added to pages like this before. So that is super helpful as well. So make sure with any of these blocks that you go into all the options for the content of the block and the design. Click apply, and you are good to go. And you can do the same editing any of these other blocks down here. Same thing with the button block. It kind of drives me crazy that it's left centered. So I can double click on this button block, have this pop-up window appear. Maybe I want to change the text from learn more to about Lauren. We linked it to my about page up ahead, so that's what we'll do. I can have a click-through URL right here. Again, I can link it to files, an external link, or just to my about page down here. I can change the size of it, so maybe I want it to be a little bit larger. You can see it made it larger. And I want it to be center aligned. So you can walk through all the options, click apply, and it's as easy as that. Say I want to get rid of some of this content. Maybe I'm changing my mind about this template. You can easily do that too. So if you hover over any one of these blocks, there's a little trash can icon that you can click, or you can just click and drag the block down to the bottom of the screen, and you'll see a little trash can, and you can drop it right there. So maybe I want to get rid of this last one. Maybe I only have 2 products. I can click and drag that as well. So now it snaps into place and I only have 2. But let's say I want it back, or I wanted to add another feature or another block. You can see if I hover over any one of these blocks, there's little insertion points and a line appears. And that allows you to add another block. So maybe I want to add another image block. I can click on that insertion point and a whole lot of other block options appear. The main ones you'll probably use are text, an image, maybe even video, and probably some of these gallery and summary blocks. But if you keep scrolling, you can add a form. You can add a newsletter block for opt-ins. You can add a map, buttons, archives. I don't necessarily set up my archives that way, but you could totally do that. You can see all of the different options. Oops, I scrolled off of it. You can have your social links, your Instagram feed, your Twitter feed. So there's a lot of options to choose from, but I'm going to choose an image block. And you can see that window automatically appears. I can add my image there and walk through all of the options I just showed you a minute ago. I'll click apply. Now we have a problem. It got a little wonky here with me adding that block. The good thing is that I can just drag and drop it into place. So if I click and drag, I want this block to appear essentially where it was before. I want the 3 images in a row kind of to form columns. So you can see this black line that's appearing on the right side of the screen right here. And that lets me know that this block is going to fit right beside this content. Now, if I drag it up here, you can see that black line is going to make the block go next to this content. Or if I click back down here, the block is going to snap to that content. Maybe I want this block to be a little bit larger. If I put my mouse in between the 2 blocks right here, you might not be able to see it too big on your screen, but my mouse turns into a line with 2 arrows on either side. And if I click and drag, it's going to change the size of these blocks. So I can edit it to be as big or as small as I want them to. And again, I can click that insertion point, add text. I'll just copy and paste for the sake of time. Feature 3. If I want to add another button, I can click and scroll down to the button block. We'll make that one learn more, center, apply. So you can see it's super easy to edit pages and content on your Squarespace website. The same goes for blog posts. So if you have any, if you're writing a blog post, you set it up with blocks just like you'd set up any of your interior pages. So I'll click save, and you can see what that page looks like right on the Ellen Company site. If you want to see any of your other pages or edit another page, you can click on the page and see exactly what it looks like live. If you hover over it, you can just click edit and go in and edit the content on your page and click save, or I'm going to click cancel. Another thing that's really helpful is if you hover, and I know I'm moving quickly, but this is just for the sake of time. If you hover over each new page, you can click on this little gear, which is the settings of each page, and you can change the navigation title if you want to. The description is super helpful for SEO purposes. I say that and I don't have a description myself, but no one sees this except Google can crawl it. So you can put a description in there. It's not going to show up on the actual page itself, but it's helpful on the back end if you want to give that page a description. You can come down here and change the slug, the URL slug. So right now it's set up that this page is lncompanydesign.com/products is the URL for this page, and I can change that here if I would like. If I want it to be password protected, I can just go in here and add a password, and it'll automatically be password protected. So if you have any content on your site that you don't want anyone to see, or maybe it's for a client, you can password protect the page just by adding a password in here. If you want to unprotect it, you can, or disable the password, you can delete it and then save your settings here. You can set this page as your home page if you want to, under any page setting. Or if I really love the layout of this products page and I want to use it as a layout on one of my other pages, and I don't want to start from scratch, I just want to save time, I can click duplicate page and it'll duplicate the page for me, and I can just go in and edit the content. Always be sure to click through these other options as well, just to see what's underneath there for every single pop-up in Squarespace. I'm going to click cancel. So that's pages and navigation. Really quickly, I'm going to go through design and then I'm going to answer some of your questions. Let me make sure y'all are still with me. Awesome. Okay. So now that you have your pages and navigation set up, and you have the content on your pages, now you might want to make it look a little bit more like your own brand. And that's where these design features come in handy. No CSS is required. All you have to do is go underneath design. And before you get to the style editor, you can go into logo and title. And here is where you're going to drop your logo image. So the image that's right here up at the top is right here. And little note about that. Always, when you're uploading your logo to your website, upload it as a transparent PNG. You want it to have a transparent background, because if you don't, and this sometimes it's tricky because the background image might look, or the background color might look white, but it might be a little off-white. So when you go to upload your logo and it has this white box around it, it's going to look pretty jarring next to the off-white background, or whatever color you're going to change it to. So make sure you have a transparent PNG. I always recommend sizing up, sizing too big, because Squarespace will automatically size it down. A lot of people complain about their logo looking grainy on their website, and it's probably because they haven't saved it large enough, or they didn't save it as the right file type. So make sure that you size it large enough. And a browser icon or favicon you can add here. This is a fun little detail. Again, I say this every time I say this word. I don't know if it's favicon or favicon, but I'm going to go with favicon. And it's this little icon up here on the browser tab. So you can see that Squarespace has their little logo right here. If you don't change it, it's going to be this black box that's kind of ugly. So this is a fun way just to add a touch of character even to the browser tab and brand your website. So be sure to add that there. That's under design and then logo and title, but you're going to change most of the design settings under your style editor. This is where the magic happens. And this is where you can make changes to the type that you're using, the fonts and the colors, and even just the sizes and spacing of your website. Based on your template and even the page you're on in your template, you're going to find different settings underneath here. So you can see header background color is set to white. You can see all kinds of things. Nav link color is black unless it's an active link color like we're on the products page, and it's blue. If I want to change that color, I can click and change the color in here. If you know your brand color values, even hexadecimal colors, you can delete all of this, add the hexadecimal with the hashtag in the front of it, and get your brand colors. You don't have to guess. Same thing for fonts. There's a little arrow. You can click and change the font here. Has all sorts of Adobe Typekit and Google Fonts are included in Squarespace. So there's a pretty good chance that your brand fonts are in here. So you can search for the fonts up here. You can scroll forever and try to find your fonts as well. You can even see show all fonts, and it's going to have a huge list. So Squarespace has a ton of awesome fonts. You can change the font weight. You can see all the different options available to you in here. If you don't want to search for something, like I don't want to search for header 1 to change it, I can just click and it says heading 1 font, and I can change it right here. And I can change the color. If I want to get all the options back, I can just click show all, and all the options will appear. So that's super helpful. But something that you're not going to see, and something that people, I get asked this question a lot, you're not going to see any blog sidebar options here, or any blog options here, because I'm not on the blog page. So if I click back out of design, I click on the Ellen Company blog page, and then I go into the style editor. In the style section, there we go. If I keep scrolling the blog, I'll have different options here. So make sure that you are on the page that you want when you're setting things up in the style editor. Things like your heading fonts and body text and background color and all of that are going to stay the same no matter what page you're on. But if you're looking for specific options, especially for your blog, you need to be on the blog page in the style editor at the same time. All right, I know I breezed through that. Maybe I need to do some more LChats on Squarespace, but I want to leave enough time for questions. So let me go back to Crowdcast, and there we go. Okay, we're back. I'm going to leave this up just in case I need to do a demo. Maybe I'll X out of that for right now. Okay. Great. Well, I'm sure we have some questions. And if you all want me to do more Squarespace related LChats, let me know in the comment section specifically what you're interested in. And I'm happy to take that into account in the coming months as we plan out our content calendar. All right. So we have some questions. I'm going to try to get through as many of these as I can. Okay. And Suzanne, I just saw quickly in the comments that you asked if unlinked pages count in the max number of 20 pages for the personal plan. Yes, they do. So you might want to upgrade to the business plan, which is what I have. And it has unlimited pages. So I think one's $12 a month, the 20-page option, and then the other is $18 a month for the annual plan. All right, Nanette asks, do you use the SEO feature? I heard SEO is not possible on Squarespace and that WordPress is better. SEO is possible on any platform, but WordPress does have a lot of plugins for SEO. Squarespace has an SEO option. So if you go under settings, there's an SEO tab, and I actually have a Squarespace post or a post on the blog about that. I'm going to link to it. I had to find it real quick. That walks you through step by step of how to set up SEO with Squarespace. But it does come down to adding like image or naming your images in the back end, to having those page descriptions, setting up a sitemap which on Google, which that post that I just shared will walk you through. And really it comes down to your content. So that's another reason that I highly recommend blogging. Funny story really quickly. I started blogging about Squarespace just to show people about the ins and outs of using Squarespace, and honestly to convince my clients to use Squarespace. So I started a Squarespace series and wrote a few posts, and it was a few years ago when Squarespace wasn't as popular as they are now. And just from blog, I never expected to show up on the first page of Google for Squarespace. But now if you type in blogging with Squarespace or Squarespace blog, Ellen Company appears on the first page. And that's simply because of blogging and having Squarespace pop up in the keywords. So I know you didn't tune in to hear about blogging, but that is super helpful as well. So be sure to go to that post. I might even write an updated post on Squarespace SEO in the coming months as well. So stay tuned for that. Maybe that'll be an LChat. Maybe I'll do that one as an LChat. All right, Suzanne says, I find the comment system a bit complicated and keeping people from leaving comments. For instance, how is it possible for someone who leaves a comment to get a notification when there are new comments to a blog post? Any other great advice on using the comments in Squarespace? So Squarespace has a few different commenting system options. One is Discuss, so you can trade out Squarespace's commenting system for Discuss, which is what a lot of WordPress blogs use. Or people can sign in through different options. So now when you go to leave a comment in Squarespace, you can sign in with your Squarespace account, which is usually the easiest way to go about it. Or you can add your name and email. And I think the last time I tried, there's an option to be notified if there were new comments on the blog post. But I'd be happy to check on that for you, Suzanne, because it's been a while since I've left comments on Squarespace sites. Although people leave comments on mine all the time, so I should look into that. On the back end, though, if you use Squarespace's platform, and this I can show you if I share my screen. 1 second. All right. If I go into the back end of my site, on this page, I can see comments. And I can see all of the comments all at once. So I don't have to go back to all, and it's taking a second to load. I don't have to go back to all of my old blog posts and try to keep up with comments. I can see all the comments right here and reply to them all. So super, super helpful. I can click on one and click reply and easily reply right from the back end of Squarespace. So from my end, they make it really easy. I need to go back in and see what it looks like on your end. That's really good to hear, or good to know about. Let me X out of that. Okay. Great question, Suzanne. All right, Kristen says, I love the look and easy navigation of your Ellen Company archive page. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. She says the blog post on how to create it is fantastic. I was wondering if Squarespace has since come up with a way in which your most recent posts are auto-archived instead of the blogger having to go and update it each time. So what I've been doing for that archive page is having summary blocks for each one and just adding a tag. So every time I go and create a new Ellen Company post, or now my assistant Marissa does it for me because she's wonderful, she will tag it like April or APR 26 or 2017. It's 2017. She'll tag it. And so I already have a summary block on that page ready to go. I just do it once a month and I separate it by that April 2017 tag. Or I need to because I haven't done an April post yet, and it'll automatically upload. So your posts will automatically show up if they're tagged or categorized accordingly as the most recent ones. The only thing you have to do on your end is go and update that summary block once a month if you post often. If not, you might just have a regular summary block for your blog post and do it that way. Great question. Moving through these kind of quickly. Want to get through as many as possible. All right, Lika asks, is it possible to use Squarespace as a platform for an online course with video modules and downloads? Yes, it is. And I actually did that for my Freelance Academy class and my Adobe Illustrator class by using, oh man, MemberSpace. It left me for a second. I used MemberSpace. So what I did, and I have a blog post on this as well. Actually, I'm going to link to my Squarespace archive for you because you can find it underneath there. You can find it in the comments, and I'll leave it on the comments on your actual question as well. But you can go in and add the pages just as not linked pages, and you might password protect them if you just want to give people the password, or you can use something, a third party like MemberSpace, and protect your pages that way. I will say people have been able to bypass MemberSpace, which is why I currently moved over to Teachable, but it was a sad move because I really loved having my course look like the rest of my site, and I liked driving even more traffic to my website when students would log on to the course. So you can, and I've written a blog post on exactly how to do it But if you want your course to be super well protected and you want each person to have their own login, you might go through something through a platform like Teachable instead. Amelia asks, I am designing websites in WordPress and I'm thinking of starting with Squarespace as well because I love the minimal and clean design of their themes and I hear so much about it. However, to be honest, I don't really know why I should switch or start doing both as I don't know the advantage of Squarespace. I'm hoping to find some answers in your LChat. Really what it boils down to is the backend and the versatility and customization of the site. For me, and why I wanted to use Squarespace with my clients instead of using WordPress was that I wanted to be able to pass off the site and be totally confident that they would be able to navigate the site and make updates on the back end. I wanted not only a beautiful site, but I also didn't want clients emailing me all the time asking me, a plugin stopped working, or this isn't working, or how do I upload a new image for that? Just the maintenance on the back end. And also with code, I didn't want to have somebody else code the sites for me after I design them. And that process takes a really long time. With Squarespace, I can easily go in and change the design. I know a little bit of CSS to make customizations that aren't necessarily available in the style editor, and I can do it really quickly. So I can turn projects around a lot quicker, and I know that I'm providing a really good a product with a really good back end too. So they always feel comfortable using the back end of Squarespace. And John tuning in said, I'll second that, Lauren. Teaching someone Squarespace is 10 times easier than teaching them WordPress. Yes, I totally agree with that. So it just depends on whether you feel comfortable limiting the amount of customization, if that's worth it to you to turn around sites quicker and provide a better client experience on the back end. So yeah, a lot less time teaching and instructing and correcting when using Squarespace. All right, Andrea said, I'd like to know how to make images more responsive / mobile friendly on Squarespace. I've seen a lot of websites look amazing on the computer, but once you access those same sites on a cell phone and you look at the screen, the images are cropped in a weird way, and so are graphics. Sometimes you can't even read what's written on a banner because half of it has been chopped off the screen. How to fix that? Yes, so it depends on your template. A lot of the templates that are gorgeous on desktop have those huge banners, the photo banners that go across the entire screen. But then, of course, when you have a banner that's really narrow and and horizontal, when you squish that down, you're going to naturally crop off a bunch of that image if it spans the width of the page. So you need to keep that in mind. A lot of times it's not helpful to add an image there that already has text on it if you want it to be seen on mobile. So from a design standpoint, keep that in mind. And always use the banner text that they provide if it's a banner that spans the whole width of the page. If not, you can kind of get away with, if you don't have a banner that spans the width of the page and instead you add an image into a block on the site, then it'll size down and keep the proportion, and you might be able to have text on it that's legible. I'm working on some site updates for a client right now, and that's the case. So I recommend when you are designing to always go from desktop mode to tablet mode to mobile mode so that you can see what it looks like on everything. But just the biggest hang up are those banner images. So keep that in mind. Great question, Andrea. All right, last question, because I want to be respectful of your time. But it looks like I might need to do another Squarespace LChat soon. Corinne asks, I used to use WordPress and switched to Squarespace last year. One feature I really miss is being able to preview your WordPress page before publishing it. Is there a way to do something similar in Squarespace? Yes, actually, when you you can see the changes as you make them, which is really helpful. If you don't want the changes to be seen, you can just click cancel. Or I would highly recommend creating the page as an unlinked page before anyone sees it, if you're creating it from scratch, and make the changes to it and then drag it up to your main navigation or secondary navigation. Or if you want to make some simple changes but you don't want anybody to see it just yet, create a copy of what you already have. So maybe it's your About page that you're wanting to make edits to. Duplicate the page under settings, under the page settings like I showed you earlier. Drag it down to unlinked pages. Make the updates you want to, and then when you're ready, switch those pages out. So you might have to change the URL slug, like I showed you how to do earlier, but that would be a way to do that. Great question. All right, and yes, there's a enable or disable mode too in the settings. That probably would be the easiest way, but there are 3 options for you. So I hope at least one of them is helpful. Great question though. All right. Sorry that I didn't make it through all the questions, but I hope this was helpful for you as you work with Squarespace and hopefully switch over to Squarespace in the near future. Yeah, if you all would like me to do more Squarespace LChats, I would be happy to jump on. And actually, before I get off of here, for those of you who are in the Charlotte area or in North Carolina or are willing to come down to the Charlotte area, I'm going to share my entire screen with you. There's a super cool business in Charlotte, now in Raleigh, and they're going on tour too, so they might be coming somewhere near you, called Skill Pop, and they teach pop-up classes in the Charlotte and Raleigh area, and I teach a few of them. One is on blogging or blogging basics, and I teach one just bare basics Squarespace class on setting up your Squarespace, and I'm also teaching a master class. So if you want to dive deeper and go past just the basics and you want to get into setting up opt-ins and really customizing your site, there are only 8 seats left, but I will look at your site specifically. It's a really small workshop type of class and help you customize it to meet your needs. So if you're interested, I'm going to drop this link right in here, and you can see more details on that. So Skill Pop is the name of the company. If you want to come and learn about blogging from me or dive in deeper to Squarespace, you can do that as well. So thank you all so much for taking the time to tune in today. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope to see you in another LChat very soon. Happy Thursday. Bye, guys.